DC co-CEO James Gunn responds to a fan noting that he encourages actors to read comic books to understand characters. Welcome to Stats In. If you're just joining us, please subscribe and don't forget to turn on notifications bell for more video. James Gunn, widely known for his work in the superhero genre with MCU's Guardians of the Galaxy franchise, took over the reins at DC Studios along with Peter Safran. Under DC Studios, Gunn and Safran will co-produce and executive produce every film and TV series that will fall under DC Universe, which is going to be a soft reboot of the DCU. Apart from acting as the co-CEO of DC Studios, the ace filmmaker will continue to write and direct projects under DCU. Superman Legacy, starring David Corenswet as Superman, is going to be the first project under DCU. Having closely worked with Marvel Studios, James Gunn is making sure that he is doing one significant thing different from Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige. Filmmaker and co-CEO of DC Studios, James Gunn is very active on social media and usually replies to the fans that are curious about his process or approach to their favorite characters. One such incident was when a user asked James Gunn on Threads, "Whenever you have somebody come on board to the DCU, do you ever tell them to read comics on the hero they'll be working with to get them to speed, or is that not a requirement?" To which the director replied, "So far, I have." The user had asked Gunn the question after he wrote on Threads that the characters in the DC comics are all myths and he enjoys bringing variations to them. He added that especially when artists understand the core of the characters is what, according to him, makes the character on screen great. James Gunn added that if the actors can understand the history of their respective characters and manage to offer their spin on it, the character looks more interesting. "I love Marvel, but Feige told some MCU talent not to read the comics. One thing Gunn is doing better in my book, https://t.co/8crl6ryc. Daniel Richtman, at Daniel RPK, February 19, 2024. Industry Insider. Daniel Richtman appreciated the effort from James Gunn while pointing out that this is one significant thing that Gunn is doing differently from Kevin Feige. He wrote, "I love Marvel, but Feige told some MCU talent not to read the comics. One thing Gunn is doing better in my book." Fans have also appreciated Gunn's attempt to encourage his actors to read about their characters. The comments stem from how Secret Invasion director Ali Salim, in his interview with Screen Rant, shared that he was told not to read the comics. He added, "When I took on this job as director, I didn't write the script. So a lot of that decision was made by Kyle Bradstreet and the other team of writers that we had. The first thing I was told is doesn't read the comics. It had nothing to do with what we're trying to do here." Ali Salim added that the story was born out of the electricity created between Samuel L. Jackson and Ben Mendelsohn, so they found a story that would serve that relationship and would expand the MCU and other characters. "I was a little bitter about losing a role, and I was kind of very sad. In USA, you can talk about Joe Biden, you can talk about Donald Trump, but you cannot criticize a foreign government, which is kind of like very sad, you know. And then because of that, I was cast in the movie Superman, Legacy, and then they told me, we changed the script after this Piers Morgan interview, and I want to assume good faith." The comedian was in talks to play Ruman Harjavti, but according to IGN, the comedian was never offered the role to begin with, and the issue does come down to script changes. James Gunn took to his social media to clarify that his character was cut before he made comments on Israel. In reports by Arab News, Gunn had clarified that he spoke to Bassem and they're good after he explained the whole story. Veteran director and co-head of DC Studios, James Gunn, talked about the reason Robert Pattinson's Batman will not find his way in his DCU. Welcome to Stats In. If you're just joining us, please subscribe and don't forget to turn on notifications bell for more video. George Clooney, Christian Bale, Michael Keaton, Ben Affleck, and Robert Pattinson. Several actors have taken on the role of the masked vigilante of Gotham City. However, James Gunn hasn't yet worked with the character of Batman in his DCU. In the history of James Gunn and the DCU, there was a certain point when the director was considering including Robert Pattinson's The Batman into his cinematic universe. The director never went ahead with the choice. Back in 2022, veteran director Matt Reeves released the Robert Pattinson film The Batman. Starring the Twilight star as the caped crusader and part-time detective of Gotham City, the world simply fell in love with the film. Well, it would have been good to see James Gunn and Robert Pattinson joining forces for the DCU, but alas, it wasn't meant to be. However, that doesn't mean that the veteran director didn't think about it. The veteran director had indeed considered the possibility of Robert Pattinson's The Batman joining the DCU when it was ready. However, in the process of doing things, Gunn changed his mind. The Reevesverse, as they call it, came to be known as a part of the Elseworld, another universe set in the same one as the DCU. However, the veteran director recently revealed the reason why he didn't want to merge the two universes. At the same time, James Gunn was announced to be the co-head of the DC Studios alongside Peter Safran. Fans wondered whether the two directors would have any ego clashes or if Robert Pattinson's Batman would eventually join the DCU. In a recent interview with Josh Horowitz on the Happy Sad Confused podcast, the veteran director talked about how he wanted to keep both the cinematic universes different, since he enjoyed the freedom. But I'm committed to both telling stories in the DCU and Elseworld stories. I want the freedom to tell Elseworld stories. In the end, Gunn would know better about the DCU than most. With the success that the recent DC projects have been receiving, DCU has regained the trust of the world, and rightfully so. With some proper planning and a high-end execution, Gunn's DCU could become quite a powerful match against Kevin Feige's MCU. Only time can tell whether we could potentially see a team-up between Robert Pattinson's Batman and who James Gunn chooses to be the next Caped Crusader of Gotham. The Batman is available to stream on Max in the U.S. Unlike the MCU, James Gunn is taking a different approach to greenlighting projects, which could have saved Disney from the Blade fiasco. Welcome to Stats In. If you're just joining us, please subscribe and don't forget to turn on notifications bell for more video. Since taking over the reins at DC, James Gunn has been pretty vocal regarding his prioritization of writers and screenplays over anything else, which continues to be the driving force behind DCU projects. With the DCU set to commence next month, starting with Gunn's passion project Creative Commandos, Gunn has clarified that, moving forward, future DCU announcements will heavily rely on writers. Not only does this ensure that storytelling will be given higher focus in the new DCU, but this structure could have potentially solved the MCU's issues surrounding Mahershala Ali's Blade movie. Post-Endgame, Disney has massively increased MCU's yearly output, but this has conversely impacted the quality of its releases, as VFX artists and writers are not being given sufficient time to meet the standard. Despite being announced years ago, Blade has sustained several delays due to last year's Hollywood strike and script issues, and with Marvel taking it off the 2025 slot, the future of a standalone Blade looks bleak. Despite being announced years ago, Blade has sustained several delays due to last year's Hollywood strike and script issues, and with Marvel taking it off the 2025 slot, the future of a standalone Blade looks bleak. But in contrast to the MCU's way of doing things, James Gunn, who is pretty well versed with how Disney operates, clarified, via threads, that they aren't going to roll the ball on a project until they've got a finished script in hand. It won't be exactly like Marvel because nothing is green-lit before we have a finished script. Although it can't be said for certain what the future holds for the new DCU, writers being put in the driving seat seems promising, as the MCU is still struggling with Mahershala Ali's Blade, he told Collider. Until we have a screenplay that I'm totally happy with, that movie is not going to get made, no matter what it is. So, we have been really fortunate with some screenplays. At the end of the day, if we're happy with the story that we're telling, that's what matters most. And once The Brave and the Bold gets to that point, then we'll make the movie. On the bright side, the DCU has wasted no time in greenlighting releases like Ana Nogueira's Supergirl and The Lanterns after being satisfied with the drafts from the writers. When asked about the progress on DCU's The Brave and the Bold, one of the very first projects that was unveiled during the initial revelation of Chapter 1, James Gunn expressed that there are no intentions to rush the writers. Elaborating on it, the Superman filmmaker reiterated the importance of writers in the new regime, adding, "Everything in DC is